Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about the providers in Terraform. What is Terraform Providers? Terraform supports multiple vendors and each vendor is represented by its own provider. Depending on what type of infrastructure we want to launch, we have to use appropriate providers. Example, Azure Task use Azure providers, AWS Task use AWS providers. So, if you're going to use AWS, we have to use AWS provider. Then for Azure, we are going to use Azure providers and same for other vendors also. It is good to say there is one-to-one mapping between the vendor and provider. How does Terraform provider works? Terraform creates and manages resources on cloud platforms and other services through their application program interface. Providers enable Terraform to work with virtually any platform or service with an accessible API. If you see here, left hand side, this is our local machine where we are going to write our Terraform configuration file to create the resources or to delete the resources. In the right hand side, I would say is our target API. I would mention Azure. So from our local machine, we are writing a code to create the storage account. And eventually we want to create our storage account in Azure cloud. So there should be someone who is going to fetch a request from our local machine and set it to the target API. So for this case, we need to use Terraform provider. Here I have mentioned the Azure one. So the target provider, it would be Azure RM. If the target API is AWS, we need to use AWS provider. Okay, so it is good to say the providers is a middleman who is responsible to fetch the request from our Terraform configuration and send it to target API. Important question. Today I'm working in Azure and learning Terraform through Azure. If in the future I start working in AWS, will I need to learn Terraform again? Question is, today I'm working in Azure. I'm learning Terraform through Azure implementation. To be very precise, learn Terraform using Azure RM provider. Okay. Tomorrow, if I'm going to start working on AWS, do I need to learn Terraform again? So the answer is no. The core concept and standard syntax remain similar across all providers. If you learn Terraform on one provider, you will be able to work with all providers easily. I have implemented Terraform using Azure RM provider. Tomorrow I would be able to implement the same thing in AWS. The core concept, it would be same. I would say 90% of the things it would be same. Only 10% I would say in terms of authentication and the other part will change. The official website of Terraform is registry.terraform.io. And if you see here, around 4,679 providers are supported by Terraform. Provider maintenance. Type of provider tiers in Terraform. So the whole providers tier is divided into three types. The first one is official, owned and maintained by HashiCorp and technology company. The second one is partner, owned and maintained by technology company that maintains direct partnership with HashiCorp. And the third one is community based, owned and maintained by individual contributors. If you see here, the Azure RM is the official provider, while OCI is a partner provider, and the last one is community based provider. If you go through this explanation, lifecycle management of Microsoft Azure using the Azure Resource Manager API maintained by Azure team at Microsoft and the Terraform team at HashiCorp. It means Azure RM provider is maintained by HashiCorp and Microsoft team. While in the case of OCI, it is a partner providers. Interact with many resources supported by the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure via the OCI providers API. If you see, it is maintained by Oracle only. And finally, this one is a community based provider. So it is maintained by the individual users only. So the important question is how to use provider. To use provider, we need to mention this set of codes. Okay. And it is not about the Azure RM. In every provider at the right corner, an option how to use this one. And this code you have to mention in your .terraform configuration. In our upcoming video, we are going to have a very detailed discussion about the implementation and the uses of this provider. If you see here in OCI also, the same thing is there at the right corner. There is one option called use provider, and here it has the provider configuration, which you have to mention inside your Terraform configuration. Difference, if you see, the Oracle is a partner one, so it is having Oracle /OCI, while Azure RM is the official partner, so the source code is present inside /Azure RM. Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to do a quick demo on Terraform providers. So the official site is registry.terraform.io. If you see here, we are having around 4680 providers. As we do have discussed in the last video, the Terraform provider tiers are divided into three parts. The first is official, second is partner, and third is community one. So let me firstly explore the official one. The official, if you see AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, around 35 are the official Terraform providers. If you're going to click on the partner one, I would say Alibaba Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and around 371 is a partner based provider. And if you're going to click on community based, so it is having around 4274 community based Terraform providers. So the second question comes, how are we going to use this provider? Let me open this one. If you see in Azure RM, at the right corner, it is mentioned use provider. In the AWS also, it is mentioned the same thing. If you are going to mention any partner based providers, or I would say the company based provider, in this one is official one, this one is a partner one, and this one is a community based. In each and every provider, it is at the right corner, it is clearly mentioned how to use the provider. So they do have mentioned the Terraform configuration, which you have to copy paste, which you have to copy paste inside your Terraform configuration. And when we are going to run Terraform init, it will download the Terraform providers, which will be responsible to interact with the API. We are going to have a very detailed discussion in our upcoming video. Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to discuss about the authentication with Terraform. Authentication with Terraform. Before diving into managing environments or creating resources with Terraform, the crucial initial step involves authentication and authorization. If you see in the left hand side, we are having our local machine. And the right hand side, we are having our Microsoft Azure, to be very precise, our dedicated subscription in which we are going to work. And in the local machine, what we have done, we have created a file name called as storage.tf. And in this file, we have mentioned all the resources which are required to create the storage account. But the first thing comes, we need to create a bridge between our local machine and subscription. So we are going to do the authentication part. Once we are going to do the authentication, then we are good to create the resources, or I would say update the resource, create the resource, or destroy the resource. Authentication with Terraform. First step, open a CMD and type a command azlogin. Once you are going to type a command called azlogin, a web browser will be opened to enter the username and password. Once you are going to mention the username and password, the authentication part will be completed. You will see the details about your subscription name, ID, and the tenant. Okay. Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to do a demo on Terraform authentication. So what we have discussed till now, in our local machine, we are creating a file name called as storage.tf. The end goal is to create storage account. Okay. And this storage account will be created inside my Azure cloud. But the first step which we have to do is our authentication. And once this authentication is done, we are good to run the Terraform command to create our storage account. So to initiate the authentication process, what we have discussed in the last video is the command called az login. Okay, so let me open my CMD and run this command. It is az login. Automatically a web browser has opened. It is asking for my email ID. I'll mention my email ID, akashkumar9750@outlook.com. And then I need to click on next. So it is going to send a sign in request on my app. I will click on send notification. For authentication completed, let me open my CMD. See our subscription name, subscription ID, and default directory. And it is mentioned here. Select a subscription and tenant, type a number or enter for no changes. So currently I will enter for no changes. Okay. Apart from AZ login, we do have one more command called AZ account. So it will provide a detailed information about my account. Okay. And if you are having a multiple subscription, then in this case, what you have to do, you have to mention AZ account set -s and my subscription ID. Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to do a demo on Terraform authentication. So what we have discussed till now, in our local machine, we are creating a file name called as storage.tf. The end goal is to create storage account. Okay. And this storage account will be created inside my Azure cloud. But the first step which we have to do is our authentication. And once this authentication is done, we are good to run the Terraform command to create our storage account. So to initiate the authentication process, what we have discussed in the last video is the command called AZ login. Okay, so let me open my CMD and run this command. It is AZ login. Automatically a web browser has opened. It is asking for my email ID. I'll mention my email ID, akashkumar9750@outlook.com. And then I need to click on next. So it is going to send a sign in request on my app. I will click on send notification. For authentication completed, let me open my CMD. See our subscription name, subscription ID, and default directory. And it is mentioned here. Select a subscription and tenant, type a number or enter for no changes. So currently I will enter for no changes. Okay. Apart from AZ login, we do have one more command called AZ account. So it will provide a detailed information about my account. Okay. And if you are having a multiple subscription, then in this case, what you have to do, you have to mention AZ account set -s and my subscription ID. Okay. So with this, we have completed this demo. Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about the resources in Terraform. What are resources in Terraform? In Terraform, resources are the fundamental building blocks that represent components of your infrastructure. These can be anything you manage and provision, such as resource group, storage account, virtual machine, etc. A resource is defined by a block in your Terraform configuration file, and each resource block describes a single piece of infrastructure and its configuration. So, what is the exact meaning of it? If you want to create a storage account in Terraform, then you need to write a resource block for it. If you are planning to create a virtual machine, then you need to write a resource block for it. The exact syntax of resource block is the first thing which you need to mention is resource, then the provider name, then whatever the resource type is, and then the resource underscore name. This is called resource name and this is called local name. Sometimes this is also called global resource name and this is called local name. And then you need to mention the configurations parameter. If you see this example, here we are creating a resource group. So the first one is resource, then our provider name, then our resource name, and this is the local name. And these are the arguments I would say which are required to create the Azure RM resource group. Okay. Let's do a quick demo to understand this thing in detail. I have already opened official documentation of Terraform. We'll click on Browse Providers. We'll explore firstly the Azure RM provider. Till now, we do a very detailed discussion about the official partners. Then we have discussed about the use provider. So to create any resource block, we need to go to the documentation tab. Okay, so I'm going to click on documentation. And Terraform has very good documentation about each and every resource. If I'm planning to create a resource group, I will mention here resource underscore group. We are getting two options. One it is resources and the next one is data sources. Data sources we are going to discuss in our upcoming videos. In this video, we are going to discuss about the resource block. In resource block, we do have two options, Azure RM underscore resource underscore group, while the second one is Azure RM underscore resource underscore provider underscore registration. We will focus on Azure RM resource group. So the resource block documentation is divided into example uses, argument reference, attribute reference, timeouts, and import. So the first thing which you are going to see is the example uses. Here it is clearly mentioned what are the values we need to pass to create the resource group. The arguments are divided into two parts. I would say required and optional. Okay. The location and name is a required argument. That's why it is mentioned required, while manage by and tags are optional one. If we are going to miss the required argument inside the resource block, we are going to get the error. While the case of optional, it is not mandatory to pass the values. Attribute reference. In addition to the argument listed above, the following attributes are exported. We are going to have a very detailed discussion about the attribute reference in our output block. And for timeouts and import, we are going to have a dedicated session. Okay. Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss Terraform commands. So basically we do have 6 commands in Terraform. So Terraform init, the first command to run. Then we do have Terraform format, Terraform validate, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, Terraform destroy. Each and every command has its own functionality. Some of the commands are mandatory to run and some of the commands are optional. In this video, I'm going to provide you an overview about each and every command. And in the upcoming video, we are going to have a detailed discussion. What are the options we do have for running a Terraform plan? What are the options we do have for apply and for destroy? Okay. So the first command Terraform init. In the last video, we had a very detailed discussion. What is the main functionality of the Terraform init? So the Terraform init initialize a new or existing Terraform configuration. It downloads the necessary providers and module is specified in the configuration. The modules part we are good to ignore. We are going to discuss in our third and the most important, it creates a .terraform directory to store configuration and provider information locally. What is the main functionality of the Terraform format command? The Terraform format command is used to rewrite Terraform configuration file to take care of the overall formatting. So the Terraform format command is basically responsible for the formatting. What is the exactly meaning of it? If you see the first diagram here, the name and the location are not aligned, but after running the Terraform format, the name and the location are aligned with each other. So this is the basic functionality of the Terraform format command to format the overall configuration in our Terraform file. The third command is Terraform validate. So the Terraform validate primarily checks whether a configuration is syntactically valid or not. It can check various aspects including unsupported arguments, undeclared variables and other. In the first diagram, what we have done, we have written a resource for resource group creation. We have mentioned an argument, name and locations. When we are going to run a Terraform validate command, we are getting an error. What is the error? The argument location is required, but no definition was found. And the error name is unsupported argument. What we have done wrong? We have mentioned locations instead of location. If you see the last line, it is mentioned like location is not expected here and the location is required. So whenever we are going to run the Terraform validate, it will list out the error which we do have in terms of unsupported arguments, undeclared variables, and I would say the syntax also. What is the main functionality of Terraform plan? So the main functionality of Terraform plan, it analyzes and evaluates the Terraform configuration, display a preview of changes to be applied, identify a new resource modification and deletion. In our upcoming videos, we are going to have a detailed discussion what are the options we do have while running a Terraform command. But in this video, I want to discuss what is the main functionality of Terraform plan. So Terraform plan, you are good to say it is basically responsible for dry run. What is the meaning of the dry run? Before running the configuration, I will say Terraform apply. It is always recommended to run the Terraform plan. We do have the three options. Either it is going to add a new resource, or if you are going to change any configuration, it will say like, hey, whatever the resources we are going to change, it will mention one or two to change, and if any resources if we want to recreate, then it will mention for the destroy configuration. It executes the plan changes after confirmation. It applies modification to the infrastructure. It creates, update or delete resources as per the configuration. So once we do have our Terraform plan ready, we are up to the mark. The next command is Terraform apply. So Terraform apply is basic responsible for what? To create the infrastructure. When we are going to run a command Terraform apply, it will ask for the confirmation, and after the confirmation, it will create the infra. The functionality of the Terraform plan and the apply is same. The only difference is Terraform plan is a dry run and Terraform apply is responsible for creating the infrastructure in target place. So the last command which we do have, destroying infrastructure with Terraform. So what is the exact meaning of Terraform destroy? So Terraform destroy, it means like, let's take an example. We have created a one resource group and we want to delete this resource group. What we have to do, we have to run a command called terraform destroy. Terraform destroy will delete the resources from the target place. When I'm mentioning target place, it can be your Azure, it can be your AWS, it can be your OCI, whatever the configuration in which you are working. So basically, to run the Terraform destroy, we do have the two approach. The one approach which I have already mentioned, Terraform destroy, whatever the configuration we are having, it will be deleted. The second approach we are going to discuss in the next slide. Let's take an example. We have written a two configuration, one resource group creation and the second resource group creation. But we want to delete a second resource group only, not the first one. So in this case, what we have to do, we have to run the Terraform destroy command, if you see, using a target option. And in the target option, we have to mention the global resource name and the local resource name. Then in that case, the second resource group will be deleted and the first resource group will not be deleted. So in our upcoming videos, we are going to have a demo and a detailed discussion about all the Terraform command. So thanks a lot for watching the video. Hi everyone, in this video we are going to do a demo on Terraform command. So in the last video we discussed about the Terraform init command, then we discussed about the Terraform validate command, then we discussed about Terraform format command, and then we discussed about Terraform plan command, Terraform apply command, and we discuss about finally the Terraform destroy command. Okay, so we are going to do a quick demo on all this Terraform command. So the first thing which I have done, I have created a dedicated folder name as commands underscore demo. I'm going to create a file name called as rg.tf, and the second thing which I'm going to create, I would say providers.tf. Tab called use provider, I'm going to click on it. We'll copy this configuration and paste it inside providers.tf. If you see on line number 11, we're getting an error. So what we have to mention here, features block. And regarding this feature block, we are going to have detailed discussion in our upcoming video. Paste it here. And we are planning to create what? Resource group. I'm going to mention Azure rm underscore resource underscore group. See here, I've copied the path. I've copied the resource detail. We'll paste it here and we'll update the resource group name as demo-rg. Okay. So the first thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the path. We'll open a CMD. We'll go to this dedicated path. So the first command which we have discussed, it is terraform init. Okay, we are having only two files inside the commands underscore demo. So let me start a Terraform init and see the differences. If you see here, .terraform folder has been created and a file .terraform log.scl. As we do have discussed, we are going to have a dedicated video regarding this one. So this is my local machine. This is my Azure account. In this Azure account, I'm having my dedicated subscription. So the first thing which we need to do is to authenticate. So the authentication part. So it has been already completed. What we have done, we have connected my local machine to a dedicated Azure subscription. Apart from that, what I have done, I have created a dedicated file name called as rg.tf and providers.tf. Okay. So once we have initiated .terraform init folder, it has downloaded the providers. Which provider? Which we do have mentioned. Here it has downloaded Azure RM provider. And this Azure RM provider, it would be responsible to connect to the Azure API. And whatever the request we are going to send it from my local machine in terms of updating a resource or destroying a resource, it will be done through my Azure RM provider. The main responsibility of my Azure RM provider is to paste the details from my local machine and send it to or connect with the Azure API and do the changes as per our requirement. Okay. So let me quickly show you inside .terraform folder what we have. I'm going to click on .terraform folder, then reveal in File Explorer. In .terraform folder, we are having a folder called providers. In providers, we are having registry.terraform.io, then HashiCorp, then Azure RM we do have. Inside this one, what was the version we do have mentioned? Azure RM version 4.12. This is the 4.12 version we have. We are running in Windows operating system. And this is the Terraform provider Azure RM version we are having. And this one, it would be responsible, as I do have mentioned, to connect between my local machine to the Azure API provider. Okay. So the main responsibility of the Terraform init to download the providers. And this provider, it would be responsible for connecting it to the target API. Okay. So the second command which we do have discussed, it is regarding the format. So intentionally, if you see what I have done, I have pressed tab and name and the location, both of them are not aligned. Okay. And then I'm going to run a command called Terraform. If you see here with Terraform format, what has happened? The name and the location, both of them are aligned. Let me do it again for you. So if you see the name and the location are not aligned, I'm going to run the Terraform format again. And if you see here, the name and the location, both of them are aligned. So the main responsibility of the Terraform format command is to formatting the code, or I would say to align the code in a proper way. So the next command which we do have discussed, it is called Terraform validate. Terraform validate if there is any kind of error present inside our code in terms of syntax or the argument which we do have passed. So on line number 3, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add s in location and I'm going to run Terraform validate. If you see here, we are getting an error. What is the exact error? The first one is missing required argument. So it is looking for location, but no definition was found. This is one of the thing. The second thing is unsupported argument. We have mentioned locations, but what is the value we need to pass? We need to pass location. Okay. So whenever we are going to run Terraform validate, it will check if there is any kind of error present inside the code or not. Okay. If I'm going to run again the Terraform validate after rectifying the location typo, see, it is showing the configuration is valid. So till now we have discussed about the Terraform init, Terraform format, Terraform validate. Okay. So Terraform format and Terraform validate is an optional command. It is not mandatory to run it, Terraform format or Terraform validate, although it is good practice to always run both the commands. Apart from that, the Terraform init is a one-time command. One-time command, it means whenever the first time you're going to run your code, you have to run a command called Terraform init, because as we do have discussed, its main responsibility is to download the provider plugin inside our local machine. If you're going to do any changes in provider details, then again you have to run the Terraform init. Okay, like I would say, if you're going to change the version from 4.12 to version 4, in that case you have to run the Terraform init again. Or I would say, if you're going to update with one more providers, I would say called AWS, in that case also, you have to run the providers again. Okay, so the next set of command which I'm going to discuss is Terraform plan. We'll clear the screen. As we do have discussed in the last video, like Terraform plan is not going to create any resources for us or destroy any resources or update any resources, but it will provide the detailed information what is going to happen if we are going to run Terraform apply command. Let's run the Terraform plan to see its implementation. If you see here, the Terraform plan has given us plus create. It means it is going to create the resource, and the resource details are, it is our resource group name. It is Azure RM underscore resource dot example will be created, and then eventually it is showing 1 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. If you see here, we are getting an error, duplicate resource. So what is the exact meaning of it? What we are doing, we are creating two resource group, one name called demo-rg, the second name called demo-rg1. Okay, but the resource name, but the resource local name is same. If you are creating two or more resource, okay, and both the resource are same, in this case the local name should be unique. Okay, if you see here, what we have done, we have created a two resource block, but the local name is same. If what we have to do, we have to update the local name. In this case, the Terraform will not give us the error. It will treat this resource block separate and this resource block as separate. To make it unique, it is going to use our local name. Let me run again the Terraform plan to check whether we are getting any error or not. Okay, so if you see here, what we are getting, we're planning to create two of the resources, and two of the resources, how it would be unique, the global name for the resource, and then it is having a different local name. Okay, so after the Terraform plan, what is the second command we have discussed? The Terraform apply. And what is the main responsibility of Terraform apply command? The main responsibility of Terraform apply command is to create the resources in our Azure cloud. Okay, so I'm going to run Terraform apply command. It is asking for a confirmation. Again, if you see, whatever the things we do have received in Terraform plan, the two of the resources are going to be created. The same thing we are getting in Terraform apply also. But in Terraform apply, we have to do the changes. So it is asking for the confirmation. If you're going to mention no, it will stop the process. If you see here, the two of the resources has been created. Okay, let me quickly check inside our portal. We are having a two resource group name called as demo-rg and demo-rg1. Okay, so till now we discussed the Terraform init command. And what is the main functionality of Terraform init command? To initialize the provider, to create a dedicated folder called .terraform where we are going to download the providers plugin. Then Terraform validate and Terraform format command. Both of them were optional. Terraform validate to check the configuration, Terraform format to set up the formatting. Then we had the Terraform plan command. The Terraform plan command is just provide an update. What are the changes is going to happen if we are going to run Terraform apply? And it was giving us three things. One, it is add. The second one was change, and the third one, it was destroy. Okay, and finally the Terraform apply command. Terraform apply command is basically responsible to make the changes in our target place. And again, the Terraform plan is an optional command, but it is always good practice to run the Terraform plan command before the Terraform apply. Okay, so we are left with the last command, which is called as Terraform destroy. Okay, so I'm going to run a command called Terraform destroy and see. If you see, the Terraform destroy command is basically responsible for deleting the resource. We Here we are getting an option to destroy, and both the resources are going to be deleted. When I'm mentioning deleted, what it is going to do, in our portal we are having a two resource group, both of them will be deleted. So this is the main functionality of Terraform destroy. But apart from that, we do have one more option in Terraform destroy. Let me type no and enter, it will cancel the process. Let's take an example. We only want to delete a resource group name called as demo-rg. So right now what we have done, we have passed a command called Terraform destroy, and it was destroying both the rg. It was deleting both the rg. If you want to delete any specific resource, as we do have discussed in the last video, the command is Terraform destroy hyphen target, then Azure rm resource group, the resource name, or I would say global name, then the local name, it is example 1. So there is one typo after the resource group. Let me rectify it. If you see here, it is going to delete only one resource group name called as demo-rg. So this is the benefit of using hyphen target with the destroy option. It will delete only one rg. I'm going to type yes, and the deletion process will be started. Okay, so it has been deleted. And if I'm going to run Terraform destroy demo-rg, because demo-rg1 has been already deleted. If I want to give auto approve, it won't ask for any confirmation. While deleting the resource, I'll mention hyphen auto hyphen approve. If you see here, our resource group has been deleted. So it has not asked for any confirmation before deleting the resource. Why? Because we have mentioned auto hyphen approve. If you're going to mention the same thing in Terraform apply, then in Terraform apply also, it is not going to ask for any confirmation. Automatically it will do the changes. Okay, so we have completed all the Terraform commands. In our upcoming videos, we are going to discuss more in detail about the Terraform plan and Terraform apply. What are the other values we are good to pass at the runtime? Okay, so with this we have completed this demo, so thanks a lot.